Hi YouTube and welcome to my channel. Unfortunately this is my first video, but I didn't see anything that gave me all the information I'm about to give you pre-op. So hopefully if you are going through this process of having a fracture and needing a plate and screws in your wrist, that this will be helpful for you and it will help ease your mind of I guess just the that it's not as bad as it seems. So my situation today would have been 2 weeks ago, and I live in such a small town that they were not able to support the kind of surgery that I needed. So it ended up being Labor Day weekend and having to schedule a doctor. And then he ended up not wanting to touch it at all because it was so bad of a fracture. I had to reschedule with a specialist. He didn't know whether to send me to a specialist or a trauma surgeon. So ended up with a specialist, which was Heather Licht in Huntsville, Alabama, at the spine and ortho tower at Huntsville Hospital. So if you are near that area, I definitely recommend her. She's a great person and surgeon, and all of her nurses and the people that she works with her definitely was giving me great reviews and feedback from her. So definitely shout out to her. So yeah, I had a fall. I tried to catch myself and it didn't work out too well for me. So I broke both the bones going to my wrist, so the radius and ulna. So the only one that they went to fix today was the radius. So they put a plate and screws in and had to shave the bone down. So that was unsettling to hear, but that's what they had to do. So at this point, when I started, I was in a full length from my wrist or from my hand to my elbow, a splint, and it was a terrible experience. It was heavy, it was itchy, it was tight, so I had to rewrap it a couple of times. And then on top of that, my dead skin cells and everything was getting caught in the fibers, and it was starting to kind of have a smell, and it was just, and with COVID, it was terrible. It was an awful experience. So I'm so thankful to have that gone. And now I'm in a smaller splint that goes halfway up my arm, and she was very adamant that that I need to be moving my fingers as much as I can so that I don't have permanent damage and permanent stiffness. So I am about 6 hours post-op, so my fingers started being able to move after the blocker is wearing off. And so this is where we are right now with that. So it's definitely some movement there, but it's not as much as I was able to do before the surgery. So I'll walk you through my whole process of checking in until now. So I checked myself in, walked up to my room, got into a gown, had to pee in a cup. They checked my vitals. And then they put the IV in, which was one of the parts of the uncomfortableness. IVs I always hate. It's just terrible. So there was that. And then the anesthesiologist came in and talked to me about what he planned on doing and walking me through his process. And then nurses came in and asked me all their questions. Got through all that. So I guess the first part was I had to swish with mouth rinse because they had to put a tube in my throat so that I can breathe during surgery. So then they put in some pain medication into my IV and put a pain blocker in for my left arm because that's where the break was. So they put it up here. Hold it with my phone or with my hand, but it was right there in my clavicle. So with that pain medication, I couldn't feel it, and it took about 30 minutes for it to really kick in, to where I couldn't feel or move my arm. So then they wheeled me off to the operating room, and they did their checks again. I thought I was going to have to get a catheter, but to my knowledge, I didn't get one, so I was kind of relieved about that. So then the anesthesiologist came in and said that he was about to put me to sleep. I remember saying, just don't let me wake up during the surgery, and he said, I got you. And then the next thing that I remember is waking up in the recovery room. So that was the second uncomfortable part. Was I just remember waking up and like barely keeping my eyes open, and it was just like an uncomfortable grogginess. And then the third uncomfortable part was from the tube. It made my throat really sore. So the nurse was feeding me ice chips, and it's still right now, 5 hours, however long post-op, it's still scratchy. My voice is really scratchy, but I had soup for dinner, and it's kind of improving. So hopefully tomorrow will be a better situation for that. And then what else happened? They asked if I wanted some juice or some something to drink, and I said juice. It ended up being out, so they brought me a soda, and it felt so good on my throat. So there was that. And then let's see what happened after that. I just kept on coming a little bit more into it, so it took probably about 30 minutes for me to really just be like normal feeling. But from the blocker, from my bicep down, can't feel anything. My arm is like literally like a wet noodle. Like it's flopping around, and if it wasn't for my splint, it'd just be all over the place. So if you're familiar with the Harry Potter series, and when he breaks his arm and it's just flopping all over the place, like that's how it literally is right now. Or another good one I found, I was looking up in Toy Story, when Woody gets his arm pulled halfway off and he picks it up and it just flops down, like that's how it feels. Before I was able to move my fingers, I guess the best way to describe it was, it felt like my arm was made of plush material, like a plush blanket. It was just like a weird, warm, fuzzy feeling. Now it's just numb and tingly, so it doesn't hurt, but it's just a weird feeling. Another just odd feeling was, since I woke up, my hand has felt like it's been submerged in ice water, but to the touch, it's warm, if not hot, to my fingers. So, it's just a weird feeling. Even with a blanket on, it's cold. Yeah. But again, able to move them a little bit. So, that's pretty much how it went. This pain blocker is supposed to last for 24 hours. So probably tomorrow around, I guess, 3 something, that's when they gave it to me, it'll be completely wore off. They gave me acetaminophen hydros, 5 325s, a week's supply. So hopefully, that will be able to take care of the pain. Hopefully it'll taper off within that week, like it did when it was first in the splint. It was able to feel down from going from a scale of 8 on the pain scale to right before surgery I was at a 2 or 3, sitting there with absolutely no Tylenol or anything in my system. So hopefully it'll be the same situation with that. But again, my doctor is very adamant that I keep my fingers moving as much and as often as I can, especially being a chef. these are my tools, and thankfully it wasn't my right hand, but I still use my left extremely often to be able to cut or to, you know, do things in the kitchen. So she said with therapy and doing my exercises with my fingers, I should get back to full range of motion with my hands, so that's good news. As well as she said a possible outcome from this whole thing is that carpal tunnel will be a situation that I might have to deal with. They might have to clear the tubes or airways or whatever you want to call it. Obviously not a medical doctor for that. So that might be the situation, but she said it also might clear out itself. So I'll keep you guys updated further into my journey of healing with this whole situation, so that I can, you know, give any help that I can to you guys. So like, subscribe, definitely having more videos to come. Oh, and by the way, excuse the wildlife in here. My parents picked me up so that I wouldn't have to deal with my kids jumping on me, and husband, you know, being able to get some rest and everything. So yeah, excuse that. But anyway, hope you guys have a speedy recovery if this is your situation, and peace out.